that's life. That's life. That's what all the people say. You're riding high in April, shot down in May. But I know I'm gonna change that tune when I'm back on top in June. I said that's life.
And just like that, I start recording something a little strange. That is not Matt Schaeffer that I am looking at right now. What happened to Matt?
I don't know.
You don't know.
I don't know. Man, he's just not here. I don't know where he's at.
He's just not there. So somehow, some way, I feel that after us talking that, someday we'll have Chris Pate on, someday we'll have Chris Pate on as a guest, that today we have Chris Pate, but not as a guest, as a co-host. So, ladies and gentlemen, all the way from Texas, Chris.
You gotta keep consistent. Be consistent with things.
Yeah. Well, this is a first. It's the first time we've tried to do this with a guest host, and Maddie's on vacation. Maddie is celebrating a wedding anniversary and on a cruise with the kids and the wife, and so it's Chris and I. We finally get to talk to Chris Pate on the podcast.
Yep.
And I guess we just start like we usually start, which is like, how did you get introduced into car audio? What was the first experience you had with it?
First experience I had in car audio is probably, I want to say it was 13. 13, yeah. My brother and dad were into car audio, as they tend to be, and my brother was always, trying to cram woofers in the back of his Datsun hatchback. And
what year is this?
Oh man, this is probably, I want to say this is probably 90, maybe 89, okay. 90, 89, right around that time. I remember my brother putting a pair of Kicker 18s.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. Bought them from a little shop in North Shore called Envirotech, if I remember correctly. So, the outskirts of Houston.
So you watched them.
My dad threw me in his S10 pickup at 14 and with a test light and told me to put in this dual shaft radio, and it's kind of all downhill from there.
So when did you turn to working at a shop, or how did that transition from exposure to that?
Man, my freshman year of college, I've been doing stuff for my friends in high school and kind of piddled at a shop, but I wouldn't say I really worked there. But in freshman year of college, needed a job, had some buddies who had just got on at the Circuit City here at the time was there, had just opened up, and 3 months after it opened up, they had a part-time installer spot. So I said, what the hey, let's do it. So
and what year is that? That's a few years later, right? That's probably 93.
That's 95.
95. That was right when I was getting out of the road shop.
There you go.
And then how did it go from there? What took you from putting deck and twos in?
So I was at the road shop, I guess, for 5 years. Worked my way all the way up to an S&I manager, and got into doing custom work and full builds and doing that stuff at your house, and then having them they'd have to penny it out, or what they do, or they do a petty cash out or whatever to pay for the time, and they got tired of doing that, and I got tired of doing that, and I got an offer from a local shop to come over there and be a fabricator there, and I was like, man, that seemed like the next thing to do, so just went in, went for it. I wanted to build stuff. I didn't want to just put in deck and twos the whole time, so it was time to jump. So spent 8 months at another shop in between, and then a shop called Audio Video, which is ultimately who I built mobile toys with, came calling and told me to write an amount on a check, and they wanted to hire me. So 8 months later, I was at that shop, and kind of spiraled out of control from there.
When did the competition stuff start happening for you?
So it had to have been right around 2000. Yeah, around 2000, 2001 maybe.
And how serious were you about competing at that point?
Pretty serious. I went, straight in, and, I went to a couple world finals before I competed, just to try to figure it out. And then, first world finals I went to, I guess was 2000 or 2001 with my RX-7 at a 93 RX-7 that I had a bunch of Mark Anthony tube amps in and some Boston Acoustics, mids and highs. And I was working for audio video. I just started there not too long after, and met Wilson Adcock, and Wilson offered to help me out. He turned a few knobs at the show, and lo and behold, instead of probably taking dead last out of 20 something cars, I ended up getting fourth. So it's kind of all downhill from there. I was in I think the Pro 0 to 150 class is what I was in. So a bunch of high current tube amps. Yeah. They were total pieces of junk. It was a lot of fun, and terrible car to build an SQ system in.
Yeah.
But the car looked cool, and that's all I cared about. So
there you go. So how did it progress from there?
Yeah. Progressed, kind of like you would think, things just kind of, the next year you start tearing the car down, and, meet, at that point was real good friends with Wilson. He really started showing me how to listen to music. He was probably he was the first guy to ever sit down and put me in front of a set of high-end home speakers and be like, hey, this is what this should sound like. I know you're a musician and you have been all your life, but this is what you're trying to recreate in a car. And, we'd sit there for hours at his house in Humble and just listen to music, and, showed me how the Reaper was built. At this point, I met Mickey Bronis and Nick Wingate, and, started, doing stuff with them, started helping Mickey with his car, kind of became the caretaker of that project. When at that point, Larry Tribal was kind of out of the install game at that point. So, from there, started building, cars for guys at the shop, that wanted to compete, customers that wanted to come in. So at that point, I don't know, we had 6 or 8 guys going to all the shows and doing well and doing really well at USAC finals. We had a lot of guys win. I always was the typical installer, like Gary Biggs would tell me later on. You end up putting your heart and soul into getting other people to win, so you never quite do as good as you should. I'd always take top 5, but I never won a championship with my own car till some years later. I think about 5 years in, I guess, is when I decided I'd build this. I had the Civic, and I'd built it 2 or 3 times and almost won. With JL Gear one time, had a motorized rack that came out with 2 focal 11-inch woofers, and then another time with Arc Audio stuff. And I decided I was going to build an expert car, and Focal was good enough to give me all new mids and highs and amps, and we ended up doing pretty well. We jumped off in the expert class and knew sort of what we were doing. Had Wilson to help us a little bit because Wilson wasn't competing anymore, and I think we ended up third that year is where we ended up in the expert class, and that was against some really good guys. You had Mark and Gary, you had Phil Petrarca, you had quite a few other guys. I can't remember everybody else that was around at that time, but those guys I remember because I was always looking at their cars. And I think at that year at USAC finals, I really got to know Gary a little better, and kind of told him what I wanted to do with the car, and he was like, typical Gary is like, well, let's do it. And I was like, okay. And so I ended up shipping the car up to Gary, and I'm flying back and forth, between there and home. And at this point, I'd graduated. I got my architectural engineering degree, and I'm working full time at the shop and running this shop. At this point, it's become, Mobile Toys. We started this car only shop for this home audio store. And, Gary, I'm flying back and forth. Gary's like, man, you know what? You should just come up here and work for Rob Rice at Car Toys of Tulsa. He doesn't have a fabricator anymore since I left. And, he needs a fabricator, and, sound quality, you should come up here. And I don't know, they were supposed to make me a partner at that shop, and they didn't. And I was just like, I've never moved anywhere. I've only lived in Houston and College Station, and it seemed like a great idea. So I went in and kind of gave him the how-to and what for, and said, you were supposed to make me a partner. You didn't. Unless you're going to offer me a large sum of money, I'm going to roll. And sold my house, moved everything up to college, up to Tulsa, and immediately my entire life kind of fell apart. Got divorced. It was a mess.
Oh,
I never lived that far from home, so it was totally a different experience. But you know, I had some good friends up there that can help me through it. I had a few family members up there, and you know, everything. You know, from there with Gary kind of helping with projects, he was sending some Team JBL builds over, and you know, I was working with Gary at night. I was working a little bit with Mark Eldridge at night, and I was rebuilding the Civic into what it is now, the rendition that me and Gary built, with where it looked like it had no steering system in it at all. And we had the paint job on the car. We got that paint job at Carefree Paint and Body, which was the same shop that Gary had to do all his paint jobs and had to do Mark's paint jobs. And yeah, we just, you know, we take the car into the lanes. It was supposed to be all Audison HV Venti amps. And that's what Orca had sent over with all the new Utopia, or the current Utopia stuff. And right in the middle of that was when they decided that they were going to split ways with Audison. And here I am with all these awesome custom built amps that were just fantastic. It was basically everything I had ever hoped for in car audio. And they come to me and they go, well, if you want the car to go to CES, you're going to have to go with these new amps. We're going to get rid of them. And you need to send us those back. And we're going to send you these Focal dual monitors, the first amp ever with a processor in it. And I don't know what I was thinking, but I really wanted it to go to CES because I'd never done that before. So I did the change. I did the swap, and it was right before we were finished with the car. So it worked out. The amp rack was big enough that they would fit. And we had nothing but nightmares with those amps. It's the first and only time I've ever gone to finals with stuff that I knew was broken. Me and Nick blew up the first 5 of those amps in the country. As soon as you'd plug a USB into the amp, it wasn't properly grounded around the USB. So if you barely touched the amp case and it touched the USB, it would short the DSP unit out of the amplifier.
Oh gosh.
So we ended up launching, I guess, 5 of those, and they sent us 3 others from France. We got them in. We limped the car in the lanes. It looked like it was all together. But the only thing that would really work, we could either A, run SPL on one amp, or B, run the front end with the front sub on the other. And so anyways, that's the only year I haven't won, since I rebuilt the car. It's the only year I didn't win the expert class. I got second to Larry Stevens. And Larry knew I was hurt because he was friends with Wilson. And he wasn't even in that class. He jumped up at the last minute.
Oh,
but I can't much fault him for it. I'd have probably done the same thing to him. So, but it's the only time that the Civic with that paint job on it has not won. And the next year, I yanked all them amps out of that car as fast as I could. Gary got me a bunch of JBL amps. We left the focal front stage, and it won the next year. Actually, I beat Mark. No, Mark didn't enter the next year. I won the next year. I can't remember who I ran against. And then it was the next year when it was all JBL. I actually beat Mark Eldridge for the very first time. And that was the first time he had brought the NASCAR and actually ran it in the lanes. I beat him by 1 point at USAC finals.
Wow.
And I think the only reason I didn't jump around like a crazy person, because it was the first time I'd ever won a championship for my own vehicle, was because I was holding my daughter. Otherwise, I'd have probably ran around like an idiot. So it's probably for the best. And yeah, I mean, the rest is kind of, spirals out of control from there. I was in Tulsa for 3 years. I mean, love the guys up there. I mean, so all the guys, I think a lot of them still work there. I know Rob Rice doesn't own anymore. Charles Stewart owns it, but I'm good friends with him. And I hated Tulsa. It's just every time I try to leave, they would throw more money at me. I think by the end of it, I don't know, I was making 6 figures plus. And I just was like, I hate living here. I just, and the shop wasn't what I wanted it to be. And, and all the reps in that territory are the same reps. So I had my JL rep named Sean Simpson. He calls me up, and I was actually about to take a job with Lee Teeples at what at the time was called the Hack Shack, but it's called Branded Customs in Dallas. Jay Ivey owns it. And I had already told him I'd come down and be their CAD operator for their plasma, because they did drops and all sorts of stuff. I would come be their lead fabricator for car audio with Lee overseeing everything. And literally the week I'm supposed to go down and actually try it out, I get a call from that rep, Sean Simpson, from the jail rep, and he was like, "Hey man, you want to move to College Station?" I was like, Gene Joyce was the owner of Audio Video who I was working for. And he goes, Gene will never pay me what I need to move home. He goes, "Oh no, he doesn't want to hire you. He wants you to buy the shop." I go, "Well, I'm broke and I ain't got no money." He here's this old fart in the background who was my mentor and really still is a great guy. And he yells in the background. He says, "Just get you and your Asian buddy and you come down here and get here as fast as you can. Let's talk this thing out." And so I knew what he meant by Asian buddy because he knew me. He knew my best friend was Lou, and me and him had almost opened a shop 2 or 3 times. And so I tell him, "Well, let me think it over and I'll call you back in a few hours." So I pick up the phone and immediately call Lou. We were still best friends. And I said, "Hey man, I think we have the opportunity of a lifetime. If we ever were going to open our own shop, this is the chance." And I told him, and he's like, "Okay." And he's an architect, and that's what he did, or he was for many years. And he was then. And he was like, "Well," he goes, "let me see if my dad can break away from his insurance practice, and we'll meet you in College Station in 2 days. Can you get out of work?" I go, "Yeah." I told him I was sick or something. I don't remember what it was. I lied through my teeth and headed to College Station. And basically Gene, who owned Mobile Toys, and he had basically told us, he says, "Look, I just want out of the deal." He goes, "Even though it's in the same building, I'm basically an absentee owner." He goes, "And you can't be an absentee owner." He goes, "Obviously our home business is huge and that's all we really care about." He goes, "But I don't want to liquidate it because I don't want to look weak to to the other people in the industry. So I'd rather you just come take it over and own it." And I was like, "Well, what's it going to cost us?" He was like, "Well," he goes, "basically, if you just pay me out on the inventory I have and just, agree to pay me rent every month on the spot, that's it. It's all yours." And I was like, looked at Lou and we said, "Hey, we're going to go grab lunch." And his dad looked at me and we'll come back and tell you what we think. We walked out the door and we're all looking at each other. He goes, "He just say all that?" And he's like, "Yeah." And so we went to lunch and Lou's dad says, and Lou's dad sounds like he's fresh off the boat. And I can barely understand him to this day. And he's like, this is a good deal." So, the rest is history. We went back and after lunch told him we'd take it. Drew up, he had a contract already drawn up with our names on it. And we looked at it. The only thing that was left off was the amount for the equipment because he didn't know how much he had in inventory. I told him we'd figure it out when I got home. And so he said, "You need to be here by July 1 and take everything over because that's my fiscal year starts and I want it clean, a clean break." So I went back, told him I was leaving. Rob got pissed at me and rightfully so. I was leaving to go start my own shop, even though it was way in another state. Still, he was kind of angry with me. He apologized later, and so did I. But, came down here and it was me and 2 other employees, and Lou'd come up once a week on a Friday afternoon late and do the accounting, and that's how it all kind of started. Mobile Toys, the whole MTI thing started was like that. And
what year is that?
Man, that is, oh God. 14, so it's 2009, 2008, 2009? I think 2009. Yeah. So,
wow.
It was a cool deal. We didn't know anything about really running our own business. I knew how to run a shop, but you don't know anything about, really managing money. I didn't. Lou happened to be really good at it because being that his dad is a really good business person. Lou was really tight with things, and it's probably why it's worked as well as it has, is that I don't ever handle money and he doesn't mess with business decisions. So and it's worked out pretty well for this long. And we kept going to competitions and built the shop name through that, going to truck shows. We moved from our import cars into doing lifted trucks and bag trucks, and that, kept going to competitions. At that point we had, I don't know, probably 20, 25, maybe 30 championship wins, between myself and, like redoing Mickey Bronus's car and a bunch of other, client vehicles that we had built that had done well. And, we just kept building it up. through that, and then build up your reputation, and you just kind of run with it. And it kind of forms an animal of its own. It has its ups and downs, but that's really kind of how it brought us all the way to the point to where we decided that we would start MTI. And the brand name, I guess, as opposed to just being a shop.
When did that, and what was really the catalyst for the custom, for everybody listening at home? MTI is obviously very well known now for doing very custom, I am hesitant to call them prefab boxes, but the craziest prefab box you'd ever see, and that's what made you kind of famous in that world. What was the catalyst for that and turning that into a business model where you could actually make something custom and ship it?
So I had a shop bot. So I'd started doing water jet cutting when I was in Tulsa. Met a guy named Abraham that worked at Tulsa Plastics that Gary Biggs had introduced me to. And so I started doing water jet cutting up there. And, and that's a lot of the stuff that I did up there. It was like the first, some of the earliest automation, guys using CNCs and automated cutting. And, I got into doing that. I'd go over to Tulsa Plastics and they would show me how to do stuff. And, or I would have them cut some of the stuff if I was way behind on things. And then when I get my own shop, of course, I want my own way of doing that. And we didn't have a place that did water jet cutting or CNC cutting in College Station I could outsource to. So I bought a shop bot. Jeremy Carlson had a shop bot, and I figured, well, that's the way to go. I always looked up to Jeremy. Everybody knows that. And I knew Jeremy had a shop bot. So I found a used shop bot and bought one. And I actually had it in my garage, and that's where it stayed for a long time. And that's where I did all my cutting. My neighbors hated me because they're really loud. I know mine just had one of those big Bosch 5 horsepower routers as a spindle. Yep. And it is obnoxious. And but it worked. And so did that for a number of years doing custom projects. And I think right after I won Installer of the Year, we had a laser. We'd had 2 lasers at that point. I had one that I learned on, and then I bought a universal. Actually, on the urging of Mark Lowe, I wanted to buy a different CNC, and Mark Lowe, Lee Teebles was working at Rockford, and Mark Lowe was there and was his boss, and we were drinking at the Hard Rock at SEMA, and Mark Lowe told me, you don't need to buy another CNC. What you need is a laser. And so I researched it, bought a used Epilogue, used it for a little bit, realized that this was definitely the way to go. But it was an old Epilogue. And at this point, I was friends with all you guys. And JT messaged me and said he wanted it. And I was going to sell it to him until I found out that they weren't making parts for it anymore. And the last thing I wanted to do was sell it to a friend and then it break, and I would feel bad about it. So I sold it to some trophy shop somewhere, I don't know where, and shipped it out. And Brian had told me what he had, and I bought a universal. And so we had that, and obviously won Installer of the Year. And after that, me and Edgar, who has been with me for 7 years, me and him were building these truck boxes. And we had guys more and more messaging us, well, I'd say us, really me online, wanting those boxes. And I was like, okay. And we didn't ship anything. We were just looking at it. And then we did ship 1 or 2, because we're like, well, heck, if we could make $1,500, shipping a box, why not? It's just broader reach. And so, a couple of them got into people's trucks at some of the big truck shows and at SEMA. Then we ended up doing a couple really high profile, lifted SEMA truck builds, and that ended up on the cover of Truckin' magazine and did really, were really popular. And, it just, from that point there, what happened is I wanted to buy a nicer CNC. And this is how the whole thing really got spun out of control. And I went to Lou and I said, hey, I want to buy this Cam Master with 3 spindles on it, to allow us to cut faster, speed things up. And he goes, well, you know what? If we sell, 4 or 5 of those a month, that'll still allow us to turn a profit, and that'll make the payment on the CNC. And so 4 or 5 turned into 10 or 20, and 20 turned into 200, and well, now as far as I know, we're the largest true custom box manufacturer on the planet. We don't prefab anything. Yes, we do build a bunch, and sometimes they are the same, but that's because they're for the same woofer. But we don't build a single box till it's ordered. It's turned into a whole lot more than that. I mean, we obviously manufacture our own A-pillars and A-pillar pods and C10 interiors, and and a whole line of Chevy C10 parts and OBS parts and stuff of that nature. So it just kind of was one of those things where we happened to be a lot of it was we were in the right place at the right time. I think we'd built up a reputation in the truck scene in Texas and down that southeastern coast area doing those shows. And I think that's what really did it. I think having a couple things wound up being in vehicles at SEMA. And I think it gave people enough trust to be like, okay, these guys can build me something that looks awesome, sounds good, and can deliver it and it not show up tore up. And
right.
You do it enough times and you build up a reputation. And it doesn't mean that things don't get messed up, because they do. But as long as you take care of people, it always ends up all right. So
yeah. And basically kind of built that industry. Like there's always been underseat truck prefab boxes that were boring, carpeted, poorly made, that type of stuff. And now if you have a boring underseat subwoofer box, it's not cool unless you have something that's got logos or lights up or that kind of stuff. And there's other people doing it. There's plenty of people trying to get into that game and ship boxes and that kind of stuff. But you guys really kind of set that bar and made it the standard for a truck box to have some cool design features and custom stitching and all sorts of inlay work and that kind of stuff that usually would take a shop a week to produce, and you guys can turn around and just ship it to them without needing the truck, which is pretty amazing.
Like I tell people, I don't feel like we invented the truck box. I just felt like that we made it cooler.
Yeah.
we made it almost a necessity if you're gonna own one of these trucks, that you had to do something cool. And I felt like that we made it okay for people to charge $20,000 to do a big truck install. And
right.
I mean, it's nothing for a client. I mean, we do them literally every day, 10 to 15 grand to do an audio system in a truck. And, back then that was almost unheard of. It's not that it never happened. It absolutely happened, but we made it to where it was okay. And I think that what we saw in the market from our standpoint was a Mercedes was, anywhere from 70 to 100 grand. And you got these BMWs that were in the same price range. So you have these luxury automobiles, but here are these trucks and they cost the same amount. And especially when Ford brought out the aluminum body trucks, and it was a complete step forward interior wise from what they'd ever offered. And at the time, it really was much nicer than Chevy or Dodge was doing, and really kind of set the standard. And when you see these different trims, you're like, man, you just going to throw a carpeted box in there? And so we looked at it and we're like, absolutely not. If they have $100 grand to buy a truck, why do they not have 10 grand to put in their audio? Because the audio was not exceptional. So,
no.
And the guys that were buying these are guys that used to have systems in their other trucks. So of course that's what they want. So,
yeah. You're saying that you're doing a decent amount of trucks in that $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 range for big systems. I've heard a little birdie whisper in my ear what some of the big boy systems. What's top dog right now? What's the biggest one you've done?
The one we just posted for a client from Michigan, it was $102,000. It's
that's
the one that me and Kush just posted, $102 grand.
And that's 4 full custom door panels.
Yes.
Like that's a lot of work.
It was 4 full custom door panels. It's actually the very first one, and to my knowledge, anybody, that everything was actually 3D scanned. We 3D scanned everything on the truck that we built. And we actually either 3D milled or 3D printed everything in the truck. Even the inlays inside the box are 3D milled. It was one of those things wanted to see how far we could put. I mean, I don't want to say see how far we could push it. We'd done 3 or 4 others that were in the 60 to 80 grand range, and this gentleman follows us, and we've done 5 or 6 vehicles for him in a boat, and he was like, he goes, well, I want the baddest one you've ever done, and we're like, what the heck are we gonna do to top what we've done? I mean, I'm over the putting amps and ceilings and the stuff we used to do. I'm not going back to that life. So, like, how do we do this, bigger? And
walk us through that. What was in it for gear?
Do what? Oh, for his gear in that one?
Yeah. What all was in there?
So it's dual focal and profile 8s in the front doors. So 2 in each door. It's a M profile 3.5 and tweeter in the pillars. The rear door is dual M profile 6s with a 3 and tweet in each door. The subs are 4 of the 10 WMs. And for amplifiers, it is 8. I think it's 8 Pro Series amplifiers. Yeah, 8 Pro Series amplifiers and 1 AS302.
Wow.
And the 302 runs the subs.
Wow.
And then 2 8 to 12 processors run in the whole system. It's actually the most complicated one I've had to system I've probably ever had to tune, because it was just, everything was active. Everything had its own channel. You're having to switch back and forth between processors, not get confused. And we have everything labeled, but it's still, you've done more than your fair share of exceptional tuning and big jobs over the day in your day. So it was a pain in the rear. I think I spent a solid 2 days tuning the truck after everything broke in, and I pink noised everything, let it break in for a week, and then started tuning everything after that. It's kind of crazy when you get to these systems that are that big. A lot of it is the fabrication and the finish and the different materials you're using and the lighting and different techniques. Obviously, we did some of the first probably 3D press grills were done in that truck, and just a lot of neat stuff that hadn't been done a lot, or hadn't been done. I don't know, this industry is. And we send it to him, and a lot of times with those big builds, I'm always a less is more kind of guy in my truck. So, they're awesome, but you're paying for all the time spent engineering everything. And that the gear costs what the gear costs. And to send something to a client, and, the whole time I'm kind of biting my teeth, because I'm going, man, I really want this to blow him away, but is he going to understand what he's even listening to? Is he into that far? Is he just want it to bang? And I've actually never talked to the guy. Jim Skaggs always deals with him. And he actually asked Jim for my cell phone and wanted to call me. And I'm deathly afraid at this point, because here's this truck that this guy's paid us a lot of money, and we've spent many months working on it. We just shipped it back to Michigan. And I'm like, well, I guess I'm about to either ship it back because something's wrong, or I'm about to get on a plane and head to Michigan, because for that kind of money, I'll do whatever you tell me. And he called me up, and he was like, Chris, I just want you to tell you that is the best sounding system I've ever heard anywhere. It's better in my house. And I was like, right on.
That's awesome.
That is better than the conversation I thought we were about to have. So yeah, I mean, that it's crazy when you think about that people spend that kind of money, but I mean, they do. On the regular. I've got 2 others scheduled for this year. So
I was going to say, if it was home audio, there are plenty of dudes that drop 150 grand on a pair of speakers or on an equipment rack. It's not that unheard of. And a lot of those people spend more time in their car than they do in their listening room. So as absurd as that sounds to most people, it's, there's always the high end. There are cars that are millions of dollars, and most of us don't drive them. Yeah,
that's very true.
Yeah, that's pretty nuts. You said you have a couple more lined up that are...
We do. We have 2 more big projects lined up that are Ford trucks. The gentleman that owns that truck has a Coleman that we're doing. Will actually probably be the single most expensive audio build. It'll be more expensive than that. He's actually we're doing audio wave amps in it. And,
nice.
He called Jim after it was done. He said, "Well, what can we do to top this?" I was like, well, I got these, and I showed him some of mine that I had made for a project I'm building for my wife. And he was like, "Well, why did you sell me those for that one?" I was like, "Well, these amps alone are $50K. And he goes, "Done. Let's put them in my rolls." I was like, "All right." I was like, "Ship that rolls awesome down here. We'll get right on that, sir." And between that and the hot rods, they keep us busy. And we have a retail side, obviously, that does quite a lot of retail. Because, I mean, by and large, most of our clients are your normal, come in, get subs and amps and new mids and highs and roll out.
What's your basic, like, if somebody rolls into the retail store with an F-150, right? What's the bottom, like, tier system in that truck for you guys?
Pair of 10 TW3s, stage 1 carpeted box, RD1000 or 1,000 watt amp is what we want to put on it. And, and then we try to get them into like the integration, the fit speakers from Focal for those trucks, because they drop right in. They sound great. They work good. And that's kind of that's your good system. And then you got your better system and your best system. From there we move up to Flax, and from Flax, I mean, our guys generally go straight to Utopias, and if you don't want to go Utopia, then they'll back them down to Kevlar. But it almost always starts with a pair of 10s. I mean, we do single sub boxes. It's a lot less. If we do, it's usually a behind the seat box,
right,
which we actually invented. Those didn't even exist till we did them. So, and that's probably the best selling box we sell as far as quantity of boxes.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, that setup's pretty sweet to just get. It's not a huge upgrade in bass, but it definitely makes an improvement, and there is no room lost under the seat. So anybody who uses that as storage space or anything, it makes it really a hideaway, unseen system.
Yeah,
I feel like as much as both of us are known for doing wild and crazy stuff, the majority of my customers still want stuff that can't be seen or want it to be hidden away and don't want everybody to know they have a system. And
most of our clients are the same way.
It's fun too.
Yeah.
It's fun to see how well you can hide stuff sometimes.
It is. It's actually a lot harder to make something look like it was never there.
Right.
Most people don't get that, but it really is.
Yeah. It's easy to pull a back seat out of a car.
It's a lot easier to pull a back seat out of a car and cut things up.
Well, while we're talking about taking seats out of the car, let's double back to competition time.
Yeah.
And building the Civic.
Oh.
And at what point did a seat come out of the Civic, and why?
The seat came out of the Civic, and back seat came out of the Civic probably its third year of me owning it, third season in. First 2 seasons it had a back seat. It was in Pro 0 to 150, and then JL was kind enough to give me amps. And I was getting mids and highs from Focal, and when I built the motorized amp rack or sub box in the back, and it had this crazy wing of JL/amps, the back seat was gone. I was a huge fan of Gary Biggs, obviously, everybody knows that, and didn't really know Gary other than meeting him at a show a few times, and so everything was fiberglass painted because I loved all that. I thought it was cool to itch your arms away and sand fiberglass all the time. I'm not really sure why we thought that was cool, but we did. It's
crazy times, man. Crazy times.
Yeah. So about 3 years in, the back seat was gone and never went back in the car. Things got really crazy when it went up there, and I started working with Gary, and that's when the whole dash, everything was gone. It was time to build a true custom dash, not just hide 4 or 5 inch subs in the front of the dash like Wilson had taught me. It was tear everything out, and we're gonna gut everything. AC's gone. Oh, what are we gonna do with the compressor? Oh, we're gonna fabricate a bracket to put another alternator there, and just stuff you'd never seen done on a Civic at that point. And a lot of crazy stuff. People built a lot of cool Civics, and Gary always knew how to push things a little farther and do something maybe that no one had seen yet. And when we were building the Civic, that was really the antithesis, for building the whole thing. And Gary always had this really good way of coming up with ideas to display a piece. And it's funny, someone posted the article on one of the old time car audio sound forums when it was on the cover, and there's the Frog, that massive subwoofer enclosure with a Focal 16-inch woofer in it, and it was just so monolithic. I remember building it, and I was just cussing the entire time, and then I had to sand it on. I finally got so tired of sanding it that I just took it to the body shop, and I was like, I quit. Y'all sand this thing and make it right. I was like, I don't care what it costs. I don't care what you charge me. I don't want to do it no more. And they fabricated a steel rack, and they went after it, and man, they made it look so good. And it's crazy because how that stuff was back then. And That thing never bubbled. It never cracked. It never moved. And, Gary built it. I mean, Gary built the bones for it. He had the steel rack done, and then he showed me how to do everything else, but he did all the mounts for it. And dude, I tell you what, that thing could have went through. I mean, I think you could have launched a bomb in it. I don't think it would have gave way. It was so inert, and it was so heavy. I had to beef up I had to raise the coilovers on the back of the Civic. It was hilarious. It really got crazy then. And it was really neat always pulling the steering wheel of the car because there, of course, Carlson and them had already been doing motorized cars. And I was nowhere near the point where I was like, I want to make my car motorized and all that jazz. But it's certainly from a sound perspective, not having the steering wheel in, visually it made a difference. And it did make some difference sonically, but visually it made a huge difference because it got in your head as a judge. So it wasn't till, till the first year I moved home. And I have my own shop, and here's my car with all this JBL gear in it, which I'm not a JBL dealer then. And of course, at this point, I'm a JL and Focal dealer again, and Nick is now back in the picture a lot. And Nick's like, hey, he goes, they want to send you all new gear for it and want you to do something special. And I'm thinking, well, what are you going to do that's more special than what we did? It's a pretty awesome car, and I don't remember what egged it on, but as a joke, Mickey Bronis would always say, well, why don't you stick the seat in the center and put a couple home cabs in it? And he goes, oh, yeah, nobody ever do that, and which guys had built center seat cars. I know you've been a part of a couple, and Jeremy's been a part of a couple. And as far as I know, we're the only idiots to really do it. And, but no one had built what I would consider a sound quality car. And I'm sure the Mercedes sounded good,
Well, I mean, it wasn't purpose built for competing.
Yeah,
let's put it that way.
And it was one of those things that was more of a joke. And I remember showing up to Heat Wave that year, and I want to say that was maybe 2010. Yeah, because it was right after I moved back to College Station, and I had, as a joke, was going to basically because the seats were on brackets, so I just undid the brackets, built one base, and stuck the seat in the middle because it was a flat floor, and it had enough room for you to comfortably your legs would go on each side of the console, and you were all the way back, so it wasn't uncomfortable to sit there. And I did it as a joke, not thinking that Mark Eldridge would be there, and Mark was there, and he threw a fit, like he was mad. Because I'd been joking about it online, but he thought I was joking. And I really kind of was. I just wanted to see what would happen. And when he threw a fit and it riled him up that much, I was hell-bent on doing it for real. and it became an all-out war there for a minute. I mean, me and Gary were against each other. Me and Mark were against each other. And it was just back and forth. And of course, Scott Bewald is in the back, playing Switzerland, but in the backside, he's talking to me, and, because that's kind of how he does stuff. And it was hilarious. And so we go ahead and build the car, we go ahead and turn it into a center drive car, rebuild the whole thing and get it done in time to go to Spring Break Jam in South Padre. And we literally threw it together, threw a bass tune on it, and I just rolled in there, and Tim Gowdy gets out of me, he goes, oh my God, this is unbelievable. And I was like, the drivers ain't even broke in, man. And it was the Next Generation Focal. It wasn't Utopia M, but it was the Next Generation Focals at the time. And we got it home, and it wasn't best of show and a bunch of stuff at that show because it kind of blew people away. And it's a neat car, and import cars were still pretty cool back then. And, and then we get it home and we get it tuned. And of course, Spring Break Nationals is next. And at this point, everybody's throwing a fit. They've decided they're going to put the car in its own class, that there's going to be a center seat class. And of course, I was kind of aggravated because it's like, man, just leave me in the class and let's see how this all pans out. And so I trailer my car all the way to Daytona, and I rolled by myself. It was just me. I didn't have anybody in my crew because none of the guys that would run with us wanted to drive that far to go to a show. So I go all the way out there. I'd been to Daytona 3 or 4 times with Gary before when I was in Tulsa, but it's the first time I'd gone out by myself. And so I get all the way out there, and Nick flies and meets me out there, and we get the car in there, get it set up in the room. We weren't even in the booth. We were just in the lanes with everybody else. And literally Nick got in it. He goes, man, this thing is unbelievably cool. It's on. He goes, and I was like, it's just you. So it doesn't matter. Nobody's in the class. Well, lo and behold, Gary decides to put the Regal back together. And it's not been to a show in years at this point. But Gary puts the Regal back together. It has one of the early versions of the MS-8 in it that they were doing, him and Andy were doing. Took the gauges out, put a center channel behind the gauges and where the gauges were. And I was fit to be tied because I was like, these MFs the whole time got me kicked out of the expert class only to make their cars enough to where they thought they could come beat me with a 2C car. And I was like, are you kidding me? So me and Gary were at each other's throat that whole weekend. Like, it was snide comments back and forth. And so that put Mark and Scott Bawalda in a class together, and it put me and Gary Biggs in a class together. So, well, I had gotten wind on the way up there and I'd only done a few IASCA events at that point. I hadn't done a bunch of IASCA events. I'd only done a few with Gary, and they were always at spring break. And so I'd gotten wind on the way up there, and it was funny. It was Scott Bawalda told John Skeeto to tell me, and so he could have deniability and say he didn't tell me directly that, hey, you need to rewrite your entire install guide, and you need to have a separate one just for bonus points. And you need to explain every little thing if you changed a bolt in that car, you need to write it up and tell everybody why you did. And so I did. So I had this massive book this way and the other thing the other way. And I get in there and it's a whole big controversy. And there was 2 or 3 times me and Gary cussed each other from across the way. And I'm wound up tighter than a top because I'm kind of by myself. I've been ostracized at this point. It's just me and Nick, and a few of the other SQ guys are rooting me on, but it's me against everybody at this point. It's the way I looked at it. And it probably wasn't quite that bad, but Jeremy came by and saw the car, and he thought it was cool, and but it was a weird deal. And here I am at IASCA finals at Spring Break Nationals, and I'm going, crap, how is this going to play out? And the judges came through, and it was a recording engineer. And it was really neat because that kind of first right off the bat kind of was like, wow, this is cool. They got somebody who really knows something about music is judging this. It isn't just some guy who's been judging SQ events his whole career and building cars. And he got out of the car. He was in there for 30 minutes. And I was like, Nick, is that normal? I don't know if I've ever seen a judge sit in a car for 30 minutes. He goes, it's either really good or really bad. I don't know what to tell you, man. And Nick, he's pacing too. And the guy gets out of the car and he goes, I'm going to tell you what, I've never heard anything sound better in my studio monitors. Thank you. And walked off. And Nick looked at me and I was like, oh my God. I go, it's on. And so I had to do install presentation. I had that down and I knew that. Well, Mickey Bronis was there at the show and Gary was rebuilding his car at the time. And the car had been there for a little bit at that point and he was rebuilding the car. So Mickey was there just hanging out. And even Mickey was kind of peeved at me for building this center drive car. And he walked over there and he goes, hey, you care if I listen to it? And I go, I guess. You haven't said 2 words to me all show. We're supposed to be like best friends. I was like, I guess you want to get in it. And he got in it and he's in it for 20 minutes. He got out and said, thank you and walked off. And I was like, what a dick. I cannot believe this. These guys are supposed to be my boys, right? And I didn't know he comes up and talks to me the next day, which is right before awards, and he'd gone over and listened to Gary's, and Gary had sent him over to listen to it, and he got into Gary's and listened to it, and he got out, and he says, well, what do you think? You've listened to both of them. He goes, well, you're going to lose. He goes, because it's exactly what you would expect it to be. He goes, he did it right. And he would have had to made a major mistake to mess it up. And him and Nick didn't make a mistake. He goes, your car is good. His car is better. He goes, it sounds awesome. He goes, it's got bass. It does everything you'd want it to do. It images perfectly. He goes, you would have to have done the same thing to beat him. And Mickey come over and tells us that story. And I was like, okay, but you still don't want to get your hopes up because it was unlimited bonus points that year. And we all knew it in the expert class. And so we're sitting there and we're at awards and and it was a lot bigger thing than it is now. And and they because it was the new class, it was the last class to be announced, and so the one before us was Scott's and the normal expert class, and they called Scott and Mark, and there was a couple other dudes, but I don't remember who they were, but those are the only two I remember, and we all knew it was going to be between Scott and Mark, and I think Scott put like 400 or 500 points on Mark that year because it was unlimited bonus points, and that's when he set the record. It was like 990 points or whatever.
Right.
And we knew Mark was going to lose, but we didn't know it was going to be that bad. And I'd listened to Bawalda give his presentation. It was the most amazing presentation I think I'd ever heard. And so we knew that. And then, of course, the next one was just me and Gary. And me and Gary went up there. And Gary at this point was trying to be funny. He kept elbowing me, trying to get me to laugh because I was as wound up as, well, you've seen me that wound up before, so you know. And I just couldn't. I'm just stressing out of my mind. I mean, thank God I don't have heart issues. I'd have probably fell over dead. And they called Gary second. Of course, I knew I'd won. Gary says, "Oh, hell, give me a hug. This is over with." And he gave me a hug. He says, "I'm done." He goes, "Good job, kid." And he goes, "I love you." He goes, "But that's the end of this." And it's all been okay since then. You know, the jokes stopped and everything else stopped. Everything went back to normal after that. And so the birth of the center drive car as a competition car began, and we've had her ever since. And we've changed her a couple times. Obviously, the latest time was when we got David, and we sold the car, and then we ended up getting the car back. Just the weirdest thing ever. But
Get back to do the install or back under your ownership again?
I own the car again.
Okay.
Yeah.
I did not
as of a month ago, I own the car again.
Oh, I did not know that. Congratulations.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. It's strange, but I'm glad I own it because we have a lot of really, I would say, uber talented fabricators, but we don't get to build together very often. And by very often, I mean never. So everybody has their own projects and their own things that they're working on, and someone might throw a little something in, but we don't build together. It never works out that way. And that's the only thing that the shop, where there was 3 of us that actually worked on the car together in some form or fashion. So it was David Cruz who really started all the fabrication and panel work, and had lined the car out. He'd take the ideas that I had, and I showed him how I wanted the front array done, and he set the front array up exactly how I wanted it for the front end. And just, David did his thing, which is, I don't know any other way to put it. I mean, he has such great style. It's, unbelievable. And, so then David, of course, at that point, we start getting this flow of hot rods in between me and him. So David has to go on to doing hot rods at that point. So the car sits there for a number of months unfinished. No doors done. The panel work is getting close to being done, but it ain't done yet. Hadn't been fine lined. And so at this point, the car has to get finished because we don't own the car at that point. It's been sold to the owner of Italia Hi-Fi, Greg Thompson. And I said, "Man, we got to get this car out of here." So I decided I'm going to work on it. And so I get everything fine lined out. David shows me how he wanted stuff. And I go in there and finish the sub box and finish a few other things and get it all lined out. And I start wrapping panels in leather, and Kush jumps in, and he does an amazing set of door panels that just it looked like one guy had done the car, and which is great. And we get the car back together, and lo and behold, SEMA doesn't happen, and I get hornswoggled into taking it to finals again. So, and we took it to finals again, and it set second highest IASCA score of all time behind Scott Bawalda, and
Nice.
and highest EMA score worldwide ever for a car. And so and then after that, it somehow magically now belongs to me again, and it sits on my showroom floor. So
Awesome.
it's kind of a weird deal, but I'm glad to have it because it's to have something that all of us did. And David, he comes up with just some of the coolest ideas, man. And to have something, it was really one of those things where I was like, man, I really don't want to see the car go, because I really kind of fell in love with it again. ultimately because of the design ideas that David executed in it. It was just, of course, the time spent finishing it out and the stuff that I had to go do in it and then the stuff Cush had to do in it, so to have the car back and it sound the way it does now is pretty exceptional. I've got some prototype speakers actually in the front now that is some stuff I've been working on. And it has custom built True Technology amps in it, all custom built Class A amps that Mr. Yee did a phenomenal job on. I'm going to tell you right now, they are absolutely fantastic. A pair of Raven 12s in the back that Orca built for me, and a standard off the shelf 8 to 12 aerospace processor, and it's absolutely exceptional. It gives my home system a run for its money, so it's a lot of fun.
Awesome. Now, will you ever go back to like competing hardcore again, or is that just kind of you'll bring it out here and there, or
I don't know that
else, or what do you think?
Man, we've got guys at the store. Obviously, we just hired Jeffrey Hald, and I specifically brought on Jeffrey. Obviously, I thought he would be a talented salesperson, and his knowledge with the JL Max system and his knowledge in cardio and the kind of his own clout that he brings. But I specifically wanted Jeffrey because he was into competing, and I know that I'm into truck shows, and that's what I do. Obviously, I'm into my C10s and my bag trucks, and that's what I like to do. And I'm not going to say I won't go to any more competitions. I obviously will. I've got a couple things I'm working on that I'll take, but I'm definitely into supporting our guys. We've got 4 guys that want to go to shows, and if they want to go, then I'll go with them and support. And I don't have to be the guy that wins anymore. It's not a big deal. I mean, we just did that show up in Dallas, which was a lot of fun. And all I did was run. I didn't even trailer anything. I just drove my F-250 that I drive every day and put it in the lanes and just to see what it would do. And that's a lot of fun, but I don't have to be the guy. I don't have to be the guy running the touchdown in. I don't mind handing the ball off. So.
Yeah, you've proved your point. You had your Super Bowl season, and
I don't feel like I have to prove anything, and unless Mark Eldridge wants to get out there and go again. If he does, then it's on. I mean, and I love Mark to death, so don't anybody get that misconstrued.
Do we need to call Mark right now? Should we call Mark right now?
You could call him. Go for it.
What if I had him on tap right now?
It wouldn't even bother me. Mark knows how I feel about that. I love Mark to death, and Mark's an Aggie, and so am I. Heck, he's about to move to Temple. His wife's retiring, and they're retiring. They bought some land out there. I just talked to him up in Dallas. So I'm looking forward to having Mark closer. But yeah, I mean, since I was a Wilson off the Wilson Adcock tree, that was the thing. You went to go beat Mark Eldridge. That was the whole thing. And so that's all I ever knew. And so when Mark quit, I ain't gonna lie, I kind of didn't want to compete anymore. And that's kind of because Mark quit. I just didn't want to. I don't really feel like competing. I mean, and I don't want Brian Mitchell or any of the other guys to take that the wrong way. I mean, it's not any lack of respect for them or their cars because they're phenomenal. I was brought up to go beat Mark. That was my whole goal. And so there's nothing if you want to be the best, you got to beat the best. And I mean, I don't know. I think Mark was definitely the best. So there's no doubt about it. So
what happened? I remember a rumor of like some sort of like Legends League, like coming about of like all the old school cars or old school guys. Is that still a thing?
I don't know, man. They talked about it for a little while, and I was contacted about entering it, and I told them if they obviously did, I would. I don't know, man. I know a lot of those guys have their cars. I mean, obviously, I know Gary has the Regal. I actually pulled it out the other day and put new batteries in it. It's together and playable. Mark's actually putting the NASCAR up for sale this year, is what he told me. So He still has that. I know Frank Rougeau has his car. I know that Harry's Acura it survived the fire at Audio X, and it's still together in the version that Ben Vollmer did. I know Harry is working on something. At least that's the rumor. I don't know if that's true or not.
I can neither confirm nor
can't
deny
talk about that, right?
Anything.
Yeah. So I don't know, man. I don't know if that'll ever be a thing or not. I don't think that it will. I think I didn't understand what Wilson told me and what Gary told me till now, that why did guys like us stop doing stuff like that? And, there's always these excuses, but it just comes down to it. Life changes. That's it.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of effort to go down and do something like that for a weekend. And you have limited weekends, and we already run ourselves ragged building cars. So if I've got a weekend off to do that, it's got to be worth it. And the question is, now for me is I got my kids that are going to be going off to college here in the next few years, and I got truck shows, and obviously it's my kids and truck shows take precedence. And so I don't do as many competitions anymore because those are the things that are more important to the business and to my well-being. Those are my kids. And so I don't know. I don't know that that'll ever happen. Obviously we ponied up, I think, 10 grand for that show a few years ago just to try to get guys to do it. And if $10,000 prize purse won't bring those guys out,
right.
Nothing's going to bring them out.
Yeah.
Because none of them need the money, nor do they want the money at this point. So
right.
It's a lot of work. Those cars have been sitting, and you can't just roll them into the lanes. I mean, I'll be the first to tell you, product is better now. Speakers are better now. Amps are better now. Period. There is no if, maybe. We all know processors are better now.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, I just don't see it happening. Me personally, I mean, it would be cool, but I think they've made some headway in the last few years, getting more people into it. I have seen more cars at finals this past year than I thought I would see. I think they had over 100 cars at finals, and that's the most cars they've had at finals. And God, probably, I don't know, 10 years.
Yeah, I was going to say 10, 12 years probably.
Yeah, I mean, so it's very interesting seeing it from my standpoint. And you know this because you're in that same group, being on the custom truck side of it and custom, classic car side of it. You go to these shows. We're used to going to shows now with 2,000-3,000 entrants.
Right.
And even an Autorama in the venues, 500 to 1,000, and guys that got way more money than we got.
Right.
It's not that it's not important. It doesn't hold the same luster that it used to. When you win an LST and you take home that trophy,
right? To
me, when you win a Good Guys Truck of the Year or Car of the Year, Hot Rod of the Year, like I know Carlson's been a part of a bunch of builds that have done. I know Tracy has too. You did something. You were in there against a bunch of guys, and every one of them had an awesome over the top vehicle. And of course, a lot of it's subjective, but still, at the end of the day, when you win one of those trophies, or like Tracy winning that, he was at the Grand National Roadster Show, won that interior award. Those things are unbelievably cool because it means something. And there was a time when competition did. It just doesn't as much now.
World champ in the top class is pretty cool too.
It is. It's still cool. Trust me, I don't. When I'm at finals, I don't go to lose. So losing sucks, and I don't like to lose. So
yeah, I think the other thing too that's interesting for the people listening at home is that there are a lot of sound cue shows going on. There's lots of local events, at least for us out here. I assume it's like this everywhere.
Yeah, it is.
There's a lot of events, and there's a lot of really good sounding cars, and I'm a firm believer that you can make a car sound really good these days.
Yes.
With a lot less modification than we used to have to do to get a car to sound good.
Yes.
And that the average vehicle that rolls out of my shop, that rolls out of your shop today, is significantly better than they were 15 and 20 years ago, when this stuff was really, all the R&D was in the lanes to develop the products we needed to be able to do what we're doing today. Yeah. And it was that process that kind of put it all together. And now that we have that, some of the systems that just roll out of a shop on a normal basis, like some of the most basic stuff I listen to these days, and I'm just blown away by how good we're able to get cars to sound without thinking back to the crazy days of, woofers and firewalls and, relocating ECUs in cars all of these projects that would take days and days to do to get something to sound a little bit better, and now we're like, oh no, the factory locations will do fine.
Yeah.
We can do that with factory locations and the right processor.
Yeah, my guys, both, I have two. One is Ray Rosales, is one of our techs, and then CJ, who is the inventory director at the shop. And he, both of them wanted to do kick panels after finals this year. And I looked at both of them and I said, "You're out of your minds. I ain't putting kick panels in either of your cars." I was like, "Y'all want to do that? Y'all can do it, but that's a waste of time. Let's do a little door treatments. Let's make your doors better. If you're going to put bigger drivers, we'll rework a section of it, but we ain't moving ECMs. We ain't moving body harnesses. No, absolutely not." I was like, no reason
kick
to.
panels look so well. Yeah, I mean, again, I'm still a firm believer kick panels are better, but it's not worth the work, and
I agree.
It's not worth the work for the majority of people.
And I agree with you. Kick panels are better when they're done right.
Yeah. And again, I've heard cars where I would rather have door locations than kick panels not done right. And my opinion of kick panels done right is not necessarily everybody else's opinion of kick panels. Yeah, I mean,
my opinion is, it's either vented to the outside or vented to the unibody of the car, or it's got some type of manifold or some type of a membrane on it. It's a lot of work.
Or large enclosure.
Enclosure. I mean, if you're going to do kicks, it's a lot of work, and you definitely modifying some things on the car. Maybe you shouldn't. So, yeah, man, I think that technology has come so far. I mean, I've seen, and I've used the Max a few times, but I've seen Jeffrey do some of the stuff he's done on the Max that just really blows me away. And how good it can make a car sound. I mean, we, obviously they had that big show up in Dallas that we just went to, and we took, we do obviously a lot of Ford trucks. And so my truck is all off the shelf stuff that we sell. I mean, yeah, it's got M profile drivers and stuff in it and Mosconi Pro amps, but it's all off the shelf stuff that we sell all the time. And then the week before, we are tearing down one of the reps' truck. It's Pete Daly's new rep. His name's Pedro. We're like, hey, he goes, man, I want some help building a box. And then me and Phil are redoing his whole system, throwing it together. And you take these two street vehicles. I mean, yes, they're nice systems, but they're street vehicles running stock parts. And they both do extraordinarily well, better than almost everything there. So, I mean, you can do a lot without having to cut your car up, or at least not very much. And, there's a lot of great cars there that were like that. Brian Gill out in Asheville, which is a build I actually think, God bless. I hate when I'm having a brain meltdown. I'm trying to remember who did Brian's trunk. But anyways, long and short of it is, it's a great build, and it's 5 speakers. It's 2 hybrid audio widebanders, a pair of hybrid audio, I think they're 8s, but they may be 6s, and then a sub ran IB. And that car blows me away how good it sounds. It's like, wow. Of course, it helps he's a studio engineer, and he can tune the pants off a lot of stuff. Man, that thing sounds awesome, and that car is not cut up. It practically looks bone stock. Yeah, so I mean, it's crazy what you can do with processing these days, and it doesn't require to tear up a car to make it sound awesome. And you just couldn't do that before. You couldn't do that, back in the day, and now you can.
What do you guys do a lot of rework system stuff, or are you pretty much we don't want to touch anybody else's nightmare where we start from scratch, or do you guys get people calling you, hey, I had a system in my F-150 and it sucks?
We fix a lot of cars. We have a rule. We're going to rip it all out and start over, but we fix a lot of cars. We get a lot of shops. I mean, obviously our client base is from all over Texas and all over the United States, but we get a lot of cars from Houston, Austin, Dallas that are not tuned right, not installed right. And, we'll fix it. I don't mind fixing other stuff. We have 12 techs at the shop, so you got to keep everybody busy, and I don't mind doing that. We also seem to be the shop there. Everybody brings their old busted SQ car that they want to have rebuilt. I'm learning to say no on a lot of that now, because it's just like, when you got a 2.5 year backlog of hot rods waiting for interiors and custom cars waiting to be built, and SEMA projects, you don't really trying to find time to build somebody's SQ car is just like, ugh. I got a couple neat ones there that we're doing for a couple of my buddies out of Dallas that are going to be really cool. They're really exceptional vehicles. And thank the Lord, I'm not the one that's going to actually build all of it. So I'm going to point and say what I want. And I got some really good fabricators that'll build those. But,
yeah. How many fab guys do you have now?
5 until June 1. June 1, we'll have 6.
Nice.
Yeah,
is that a top secret announcement?
No, I don't mind telling anybody. We hired James Davidson out of Dallas. He was up when David was up there. David was over at Soundscape. James Davidson was over at Mobile Sound Systems, and probably the two. Probably number one and number 2 best guys in Dallas, man. They were just both phenomenal techs. And so I've actually been trying to hire James for a number of years. He got not out of the industry, but he got out of working at shops. He would just do stuff at his house. And I think he finally got tired of working and being by himself and not progressing. And I don't mind. We love to teach people how to, I guess, help them. I wouldn't say that we make people realize their potential. We like to help, and we like to give guys the ability to learn and take that next step if they want it. And it's what we want guys to do, because you have to keep learning, doing what we do. So yeah, he starts June 1, and so we'll have six fabricators there at that point, and then we have
and then you only need to hire another 6 more to be able to catch
up. I'm looking for 2 more. I ain't gonna lie.
Send your resumes. Where do they send their resumes?
Where do they send their resumes? Everybody knows how to email me. I'm pretty sure there's a number. There's a few places out there that I'm not on their Christmas card list anymore. So that's okay. I understand. I get it. And trust me, I've had my fair share of guys leave. It isn't like I win them all, and I've done my fair share of helping some guys get raises this past few years. So it is what it is. It's just business, and I try to do things on the up and up, and everybody's always done the same. So it is what it is. Everybody's looking for techs. You gotta. I think that's the big thing. You're in the same boat, trying to find guys that can reliably do jobs and show up to work. It's 2 big things.
Yeah, two of the most important things.
Oh, no doubt.
You guys have, you have so much talent in that building, and such a great facility that just sounds like it keeps getting better and better and more futuristic as the days go on. And yeah, it's pretty cool setup for
it
everybody.
Is. It's neat. It's we've had a lot of good things to look at. It helps being friends with the guys, with you guys, with Carlson, especially. When you see a place like that, and of course I've never been to Avant-Garde in person, but I've seen a lot of pictures, and what is without a doubt the best shop in the world. I think you'd be hard pressed to find anything that's cooler, and more well thought out. Katz's place up there, the way he's got it set up, and and just some really neat ideas, and we do our best to try to make sure it fits our needs. We're not Avant-Garde, and we're not JK's place, and we're us, and we have our own business model, and yeah, we do build hot rods too, but we're definitely not those guys. Those guys are a different, in my opinion, they're in a different class with what they do, and I think we do some great stuff, and I think we do some really neat stuff, and I think we're getting there. But it's been good to have something to work up to, because we've definitely done things differently. We have. I would say we probably have more automation in our shop than any shop in the world. Part of that's because of the production side of it and the manufacturing side, but we have I seem to collect robots as much as I do installers and fabricators. I actually don't sell them. I refuse to sell them. I have guys ask me all the time if I'll sell that CNC or that laser, and I go, nah, I'll use it. And by and large, 99% of our stuff runs almost every day. So some of the 3D printers don't run every day, but more recently they've all ran, and they are all running every day now. And that's kind of our big thing, is the 3D printing side of it now is adding more printers and different styles of printers to do different parts for us. And yeah, I love technology. There's no doubt about it. I love that side of it. And I would be remiss if I didn't point that it was Carlson and you and you guys who really, and then of course Lee Teeples and Mark Lowe and those guys who really pushed and said, you should do this, you should go this way. And it's definitely allowed us to build a really awesome shop. We still got a ways to go. That's why I still haven't posted pictures of it, because you only get one chance to post the pictures and make a big deal about it. And we have the front showroom, although it looks great, is not what it's going to be. And I think there was just some big deal where they posted renderings of some of it. But it's going to be definitely unlike anything else in the world from that standpoint. And once that's done and the back final part of the production is finished, I'll post pictures.
And you just started adding on another section, or is that done already?
The building is done. They start spray foam insulation into this month, and then from there it'll snowball into framing will come in, electrical will come in, and once that's done, they'll dry it in, and they'll do a texture on it. We won't even paint it because it's production, so there's no reason to put paint on the wall and spend another $10,000 on that. So yeah. And once that's done, it'll finally be organized the way to where it's as efficient as it can be at this level of the game. You can't ever say, I hate to say, oh, that's the way it's going to be, because you and I both know that's not the case. You can always get better. You can always get faster. You can always, find better techniques or have people come in and suggest better techniques, but it'll definitely be the best that we've done at this point. And it'll be something special. The wood shop for those that we're building for production is off the charts. I mean, it's like a cabinetry wood shop at that point. It's, I think 2 or 3 table saws, I think 12 routers. Basically we're setting it up to where whatever project or part that production team is on. So if they're building, stage 4 custom Ford boxes, everything is set and ready to go to where those just run, and they run those parts, and it's bam, bam, bam down an assembly line, and they go. And then if they're running, Chevy boxes, and they, so on and so forth, those parameters are set. We have them logged, and you reset the machines for those, and you run those. To where you're running them as batches. I know me and you've had a lot of conversations about manufacturing and processes and how to do things better, and trying to put that together into something that still is custom has definitely been a challenge, but it's been a lot of fun to figure it out.
Do you have a total or a guesstimate on how many woofer boxes you guys have put together in the last, whatever it's been, 5-6 years?
So we average, I would say over the past 5 years, I would say if you average in what we're doing now back to then, you're probably 30,000 boxes.
Wow.
Give or take. I mean, that may be a little inflated, but it's definitely not less than 20,000.
Yeah.
But it's probably closer to 30, especially when you take into account nuts. We build all the boxes for Focal America. We built boxes for 3 other manufacturers where we do their boxes. We designed them for them and built them. Take those into account. Those build that number up too, but it's a lot. I mean, we average probably right now, we've had times where we've done between 500 and 600. Right now I think we're averaging between 300 and 400, which to us is a much more comfortable and manageable number. We've learned that, especially with the challenges with materials and the cost or rising cost for raw materials and shipping, you've had to learn that you can only build X amount of boxes. So those X amount of boxes, that number is a set number. And if you want to do them at the quality level you want, you need to make sure every one of those is as the most profitable you can be. So definitely we've taken a different approach over the past year, shifting what we do for custom boxes, especially, and realizing there's some things that we are changing, because ultimately for us, we want our boxes to be absolutely over the top. And some of the stuff that we have coming down the pipe for the next year is just going to make it that much more over the top, to where people are just like, man, I'll just let them do it. I don't want to deal with it, because some of the quality and extra, I would say, finishing touches that we're putting into stuff now is just over the top. And we've got a really good team. I think there's 15 people, 16 people in production. We have a person dedicated to nothing but product development. We've got multiple CAD operators. We got 2 CNC operators, 5 guys building, 4 guys wrapping, and 3 people finishing, and then 2 or 3 people in shipping. So it's a full-fledged operation. It's not a couple guys slamming boxes together at night and the guys coming in to wrapping them. And, I get it. And there's guys building boxes, and there's some neat boxes that get built out there. So I don't want to take nothing away from nobody. They build some great looking stuff, and but it's not what you think it is. I mean, it's a full-fledged operation that just happens to build custom boxes.
Yeah, and that's grown.
It has.
Obviously.
It was.
You
Don't
didn't
get
start
wrong.
with 15
It
guys.
was that way at one time. So, but that was a long time ago. So, but it's a lot of fun. I'm not gonna lie. There was a time where I thought that I'd be at this stage in the game, long gone out of this, and working for Focal. I was for sure that's where I was going to end up. I was going to own my own business for a while, get tired of it, and I'd probably end up going to work for Nalica and Kimon and or Focal corporate. And now I don't know that I could ever see it that way at all. So I love doing what I do, or else I wouldn't do it. So
that's awesome. Yeah. Awesome. And what do you see the future? Obviously, you're sticking with building boxes and custom trucks. What else? Any big goals?
Yeah. There will, down the line, we're definitely the big thing right now is for us actually manufacturing the A-pillar and A-pillar pod speaker locations. And that's been our biggest thing for the past 6 months to a year that we've been working on. And we are now in the final, we're already producing them now, to where we're going to be producing not just trucks. We're going to be producing different car models to where it's a bolt-on pillar pod. And that's been the big thing that we've been working on and developing. And obviously we debuted some stuff. We had it at the expo with Brian, and but now we know the feasibility of it. The beauty of having one of the largest retail stores in the country is, well, we can try things. Does it work and our customers don't like it? Well, we know probably ain't going to sell anywhere else, but it doesn't sell at our place. So, but we know if it sells at our place, it'll sell at other places. And so that's a big thing. I think it's going to be a key for retailers to be able to sell more 3-way kits, which are really a big deal for speaker manufacturers. And not that you can't make a vehicle sound great with a 2-way, but it always seems to be easier with a 3-way, especially if you do it active and you do it correct, and then you sell more amplifiers and you do a full processor at that point. And so that's going to be a big thing for us. At some point, I wouldn't mind making my own speakers. That'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah. I've
been approached by some things here in the last year that have gotten close to it. I hadn't done it yet, but you never know. I would love to make my own speakers. So I would very much, the goal is to continue to grow the MTI brand into its own audio company beyond just parts. I think that if we continue to build products that people want, that in fact make a vehicle sound better, and they're built with quality and with precision, and they look great, I think that the progress will continue. I think when you let those things slip is when things fall apart. And from that side of the business, that's where we're heading. Continuing to look at vehicles and figure out, for us, the challenge is figuring out what the next big thing is. Obviously Broncos are really popular right now, but is that going to be a 1-year thing, 2-year thing, or is it something that's going to be here for a while? You don't know. It's not like Ford trucks and Chevy trucks that are the best selling vehicles in the country, and they're always going to be there. So trying to figure out, I understand companies like JL Audio, when you'd say, man, why don't you build a stealth box for this vehicle? and they look at you and go, why? Because nobody's going to buy that box,
Nope.
Chris. Well, man, no, somebody will. No. You really don't understand. Nobody is. And I understand that now because I've had people say, man, you should manufacture pillars for this vehicle. And I go, but nobody ever buys that vehicle. I mean, people do,
Right.
but they don't spend money on audio after they buy it, And so I have learned a lot of that from watching my other friends who are people I know in the industry that own their own manufacturing businesses. And, that's going to be the challenge moving forward is continuing to learn. Because I'll be honest with you, everything has been honestly between talking to you and Doug Winker and a couple of my friends at Kicker and a couple of my friends at J Audio and Focal. And that's been my whole concept of putting together any type of manufacturing system. And it's been a crazy 3-ring circus with alligators and sharks with laser beams and just, we've made some messes and we've cleaned them up and figured out better ways to do it. And I don't know if there's any other way you can do it, but it's worked out so far.
Yeah,
So,
there's always room for improvement and ways to make things better, stronger, faster,
absolutely.
cheaper.
If you don't think there is, then you're done. You're done.
Yeah. The second you think you have it all locked down in the perfect formula,
That's when it falls apart.
yep, that's for sure. Well, that is an hour and a half, sir. Did that go quicker than you think it was going to?
It went about how I thought it would go. I mean, not bad.
Yeah,
Not bad.
not too
Not
bad.
bad.
You, I feel like as much as I still saying that you were never a guest on the show, you were just a co-host, so we can keep up our gag of no, Chris. Sorry, we'll get to Chris someday as a guest.
Yeah.
So we're still counting this as that you were a
That's
co-host.
no problem. I'm good with that.
But congratulations on being the first co-host,
Yes.
first outside co-host ever.
Hey, I'm down for whatever. Y'all guys know that. I think I've kind of made that very clear in the group. I don't care.
I think Maddie might be a little bummed that he missed having you on the show. He wasn't here to share, but
I love me some
sure
Maddie
we'll do it
Schaeffer.
again.
Everybody knows that. So I love that guy. He's class. So
he really is.
he's a hoot. I'm
Also
sure
doing
he's
some
having
fun-
a big old
some
time
fun
right
projects. Oh yeah, he's cruise. I'm not even sure where he was.
now, though. I don't
headed,
know.
but
Samantha,
he's on a
my
boat
wife
somewhere.
knows because she was giving me a hard time today about it. She goes,
Oh, they're on a cruise and
yeah,
we're not.
that's exactly what it was. She says, why are we not getting on a cruise? I was like, oh my God, woman, leave me alone about this. I was like, we'll go on a cruise in November when it's cheap. I'm not doing it right now. I'm a cheapskate when it comes to that, man. I'll wait till out of season and then I'll go on a cruise. But
Oh god.
told her I was like, I'll take you to Destin this summer. Oh man,
Oh,
yeah, I'm sure he's having a
that's
big
not
old
cool.
time now. So he deserves it. He works hard. So
For sure.
yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's gonna wrap it. Thank you so much for spending some time on your evening here with me.
Absolutely.
And we'll talk again soon.
All right, brother. You be good. Appreciate you.
All right.
All
Take
right.
care.
And I